The chamber of the Galactic Council stretched beyond sight, a vast cathedral of light and shadow floating at the heart of the galaxy. Each seat glowed in a different hue, marking the place of 1,000 species, from mist-like beings that shimmered like smoke to towering reptilian lords draped in silver armor. The ceiling was alive with constellations, each star representing a world bound by the Council's rule. And at the center of this colossal arena stood 3 humans beneath a single shaft of cold white light. Every eye in the chamber was on them. The first humans to stand trial before the Galactic Council. Ambassador Mara Gray stood with her hands clasped behind her back, her face calm, but unreadable. Beside her was General Reeve, broad-shouldered, silent, his eyes scanning the alien delegates. And behind them, Dr. Voss adjusted his translator collar, looking more like a scholar caught in a storm than a scientist defending a world. The High Speaker of the Council, a translucent being with 6 glimmering eyes, leaned forward. Its voice rolled through the chamber like thunder wrapped in silk. "Representatives of Earth," it said, "you stand accused of an act so vile that it defies the basic codes of civilized life. You are charged with the capture and genetic violation of Kraith children." A wave of sound filled the hall. 1,000 voices of outrage, hisses, metallic clicks, screeches of disbelief. The accusation had spread across the stars for weeks, but now the entire galaxy watched to see if the rumor was true. Humanity, the newcomers, the unpredictable ones, had been called monsters. General Reeve said nothing. He stood unmoving as though carved from stone. The Kraith ambassador rose from his seat, claws clanging against the platform. His scaled body shimmered with heat. "We brought proof," he snarled, projecting a hologram. The image filled the air, scenes of smoldering wreckage, small bodies being carried by soldiers, faint traces of human DNA recorded in glowing script. "You stole our offspring. You used them for experiments." Gasps rippled across the chamber. The projection flickered, showing symbols and human signatures embedded in the evidence. The Kraith slammed a claw against the podium. "We demand judgment. We demand punishment." Mara's expression did not change. She waited until the echoes faded. Then she spoke, her voice soft but clear. "If you demand truth, then let the truth be seen. But not through your words. Through evidence verified by this council. We request full access to all biological samples, all recordings, and all recovered remains." The chamber went silent again. The Kraith hissed, taken aback. "You dare to make demands? You are a minor world with barely 1 seat at this council." "And yet," Mara replied calmly, "our laws allow us to invoke the Founding Clause, Section 12, the right to direct examination when accused without trial." "It was written in your own records." A ripple moved through the council seats. Many of the older species glanced at one another. Few even remembered that clause, an ancient law unused for millennia. Humans had been members of the council for less than 10 years, yet somehow they had found it. The High Speaker's eyes brightened. "You invoke an ancient code?" "Yes," Mara said, "because truth does not fear light." Whispers filled the chamber. Some delegates murmured admiration. Others muttered that humans were bold to the point of madness. The Kraith ambassador snarled, his scales flaring red. "You twist laws like scavengers twisting metal. There is no light that can cleanse your corruption." General Reeve finally raised his head. His voice was deep and steady. "Then let's find out," he said. The High Speaker motioned with one hand, and a dozen drones descended from the ceiling. They hovered above the humans, scanning, recording every movement. The chamber's vast displays flickered as the data transfer began. It was the start of the formal inquiry. Every detail of the case would be reviewed by all present species in real time. As the lights dimmed, the first transmission appeared. The Kraith evidence files. Images of destroyed ships, wrecked laboratories, strange hybrid creatures, and the haunting cries of younglings. The Kraith ambassador gestured dramatically. "They're human soldiers. Human DNA. The proof speaks for itself." Mara studied the hologram carefully. She didn't look shocked. Instead, she turned to Dr. Voss, who was already analyzing the data through his wristpad. His eyes flicked across the streams of code, comparing molecular signatures, timestamps, and data formatting. "Interesting," he murmured quietly. "This data isn't pure. The genetic markers, they've been copied." Reeve frowned. "Copied?" Voss nodded. "Yes, human genetic data replicated artificially. The sequences are too clean. It's like someone printed human DNA from a model. Mara looked back at the high speaker. We ask that this data be checked by neutral analysis. Humans may not be the only ones who can create false evidence. The Kraith slammed his claws. Lies, you think we would risk such deceit before the council? You already risked stealing children, Reeve said, his voice low. The room quieted instantly. The Kraith froze. For a brief moment, even his breathing stopped. What did you say? Reeve stepped forward just close enough for the light to fall across his face. You heard me. You accuse us of taking your children. But before you shout your outrage, you should ask what we found drifting near your border worlds. You should ask who the small bodies were that you buried without faces. A chill ran through the chamber. The human general's tone carried no anger, only cold certainty. Mara took over. We've recovered fragments of data too. Transport signals encrypted. We didn't bring them forward before because we hoped for peace. But if this council demands truth, we'll show everything. She raised her hand and a small sphere projected a new image. A cargo vessel, marked with Kraith symbols, entering a restricted human colony zone. The recording was from a satellite camera. A moment later, explosions flared across the surface. Heat signatures of small bodies being dragged into the ship's hold appeared in red outlines. The crowd erupted. Dozens of delegates shouted at once. The Kraith ambassador tried to interrupt, but his voice was drowned by noise. The high speaker banged the staff of command against the floor. Silence. The sound struck like thunder. The hall went quiet again. Are you presenting this as evidence? Yes, Mara said. And we have more. But we will reveal it only when given full access to the investigation files. Until then, this council has no right to judge humanity on false grounds. The high speaker studied her, its 6 eyes reflecting fragments of the star-filled ceiling. Then it nodded slowly. Very well. The founding clause is recognized. Earth will have temporary investigative rights. The Kraith hissed with fury, but the council's guards blocked his protest. As the chamber emptied, the humans remained still. Reeve's gaze followed the departing ambassadors. Some looked fearful, some curious, others calculating. Dr. Voss closed his pad. They planted our DNA to cover their tracks. But why take children? Mara answered quietly. Because they didn't want soldiers. They wanted something else. Something they could mold. Reeve's eyes darkened. Then we'll find out where they're keeping them. The human envoy ship left the council hall hours later, drifting into the void. Across the galaxy, every species whispered of what they had seen. A new species standing before the council without fear, invoking forgotten laws and daring to accuse their accusers. In the silence of the ship's bridge, Reeve looked out at the swirling stars. They think we'll just defend ourselves, he said. But if they've touched our young... He paused, his voice dropping to a whisper that carried more threat than any weapon. They'll learn what it means to face humanity's fury. Mara didn't reply. She only watched the stars ahead, the glow of the council's core fading behind them. Somewhere in the cold reaches of space, human children were missing, and the entire galaxy had just seen Earth refuse to kneel. The silence stretched, heavy with the weight of what was coming. Humanity had entered the council seeking justice. But before it ended, the galaxy would learn that humans were not to be judged, they were to be feared. The Galactic Council chamber was darker this time. The light that once shimmered with order now pulsed with unease. Every representative sat rigid in their seats, eyes fixed on the humans standing once again beneath the central light. The air vibrated with whispers, disbelief, curiosity, and quiet fear. Humanity had demanded an inquiry. Now they were ready to reveal their evidence. At the heart of the chamber, Ambassador Mara Gray stood poised, calm as the storm built around her. General Reeve remained beside her, his uniform immaculate, his silence louder than any weapon. Dr. Voss adjusted the datasphere in his hands, preparing to project the truth. The high speaker's translucent form flickered above the dais. Earth, it began, you have been granted limited rights of inquiry under the founding clause. Present your findings to this council. But remember, falsehoods here will bring the full weight of judgment upon your world. Mara's gaze never wavered. We understand, and we will show you what really happened. With a single gesture, Dr. Voss activated the sphere. The lights dimmed and the projection filled the chamber. A barren planet appeared, its surface scarred by war. The recording zoomed in to show Kraith soldiers dragging small figures through ash and fire. The creatures were small, pale, and shaking. At first, the aliens watching believed them to be Kraith offspring. But then the image stabilized. Gasps spread across the hall. They were human children. The silence that followed was heavier than any roar. Even the high speaker seemed to hesitate before speaking. "Explain this." Mara's voice was steady. "These recordings come from our recovered surveillance satellites near the Kraith border. The Kraith Dominion invaded one of our colonies disguised as traders. They didn't take resources or territory. They took our children, and then they blamed us for what they did." The Kraith ambassador, seated among his own kind, leapt to his feet. His scales flared bright orange with anger. "Lies, fabrications. You forged these recordings." Dr. Voss lifted another sphere. "This is the genetic data from the so-called alien children you accused us of harming. We analyzed the material you provided to the Council. It's not alien DNA. It's human DNA manipulated to look like your kind." The chamber erupted. Dozens of species shouted at once, translator devices struggling to keep up. The high speaker pounded the staff of order against the floor. "Silence. Let the humans continue." Dr. Voss rotated the hologram again. Genetic codes scrolled through the air, glowing blue and red. The sequences show clear signs of replication. No natural DNA looks this clean. It was copied, rebuilt, and altered. The base template is unmistakable. It belongs to human children aged between 6 and 12. Mara stepped forward, her voice sharper now. "You accused us of capturing your offspring. But we found traces of our own missing children in your laboratories. This isn't justice, it's cover-up, and the Council deserves to know the truth." The Kraith ambassador slammed his claws against the table. "We will not be slandered by primitive creatures." Reeves' cold stare cut through the noise. "Then tell us where the missing ones are. Tell us why your ships were seen near our colonies. Tell us why you destroyed every record of those missions." The Kraith tried to respond, but the words caught in his throat. His translator flickered as his voice cracked. "You cannot prove," Mara interrupted him. "We already have. The ship that took the children had a Kraith registration mark, Z41C. It vanished 3 months after the incident. But our deep space probes found its wreckage drifting in neutral space." Reeve nodded to Dr. Voss, who projected another recording. The damaged ship appeared, hull torn open, its cargo hold filled with cryogenic pods. Inside them were small forms, children sleeping or worse. Some pods were empty. Gasps rippled again through the chamber. The scene was too clear to deny. The high speaker's 6 eyes flickered rapidly. "Is this confirmed?" "Yes," Voss said quietly. "Our scientists verified the bodies as human, and the ship logs show Kraith command codes." The Kraith delegation broke into chaos. Some shouted in protest, others whispered in disbelief. Their ambassador trembled, trying to maintain his composure, but his claws dug into the table hard enough to crack it. "You don't understand," he shouted. "It was research. It was supposed to help us survive. Your DNA, your adaptability was key." The words echoed like a confession. The entire chamber froze. The high speaker turned slowly toward the Kraith seats. "You admit to abducting sentience from another world?" The Kraith ambassador looked around wildly, realizing his mistake. "No, they were not sentients yet. They were only—" Reeves' voice cut him off, quiet but deadly. "Children." Mara's tone hardened. "You called them resources. We call them sons and daughters." The chamber trembled with emotion. Even the oldest races stared at the humans with something close to awe. Humanity had just unmasked an entire government in front of the galaxy. The high speaker leaned back, the glow of its eyes dimming. "The Council will deliberate on this matter immediately. Until then, both parties will refrain from any form of retaliation." Reeves' eyes narrowed. "That may not be possible." Mara placed a hand on his arm, stopping him, but her expression said the same thing. They would comply for now. The Council adjourned, leaving the air thick with whispers. Delegates gathered in clusters, speaking in low tones. Some admired the humans for their bravery. Others feared what might come next. Outside the chamber, in the quiet halls of the Council Tower, Mara and Reeve walked side by side. The stars of the galactic capital shimmered through the transparent walls. "They'll try to bury this," Mara said softly. "They always do." "Then we dig deeper," Reeve replied. "We find out where they took the rest." Dr. Voss joined them, carrying a small case. Inside were fragments of data, recovered from the Kraith wreck. "We found coordinates," he said, "but they're encrypted. Old format, pre-council tech." Reeve frowned. "Hidden, then." Maybe deep space. Mara stopped walking. If they're still alive. Reeve looked at her. Then we'll bring them home. That night, the humans met aboard their embassy ship orbiting the Council world. The crew stood silent as the leaders entered. Every person on board had seen the footage. Every one of them understood what it meant. Dr. Voss projected the last fragment of data onto the main screen. The coordinates flashed briefly before fading into static. Can you trace it? Reeve asked. Not alone, Voss admitted. But if we access the Council's central network, I can cross-match it against ancient star maps. It will take time. Then we make time, Mara said. The ship's communication console blinked with incoming messages. Dozens of alien delegations wanted private discussions with Earth. Some offered support. Others offered warnings. The galaxy was waking up to what had just happened. As the humans prepared for the long night of analysis, the council chamber remained empty, its seats dark. But in the shadows above the dais, the high speaker spoke quietly to a hidden aide. They are dangerous, it murmured. Not because of their weapons, because of what they fight for. On the human ship, the final transmission from the Kraith vessel replayed. A desperate voice crackled through static. A Kraith scientist shouting as alarms blared behind him. They found us! The humans found us! They're here! Then silence. Reeve stared at the frozen image. They think we're monsters, he said. But they haven't seen what happens when we protect our own. Mara nodded slowly. Then let them watch. Outside, the stars reflected on the ship's hull like 1,000 eyes watching the rise of something new. A world that would not kneel. A species that had been underestimated too long. Humanity was no longer the accused. They were the warning. And as their ship left the orbit of the Council world, its engines igniting with pale blue fire, the message was clear across every channel of the galaxy. Humanity was done pleading for justice. Now they would take it. The Galactic Council chamber was more crowded than ever before. Every seat was filled, every holographic presence flickering with tension. The vast dome shimmered with energy, showing the galaxy's endless expanse beyond its transparent walls. It was supposed to be a place of peace and law, but tonight it pulsed with fear. The humans had returned, and this time, everyone knew the situation had changed. Ambassador Mara Gray stood in the center of the arena again, surrounded by the glow of alien eyes. To her right, General Reeve's uniform was sharp and dark, his face unreadable. To her left stood Commander Hale, representing Earth's defense fleet. The galaxy had watched humanity uncover the Kraith's crimes in the last session, but now, something far worse had begun. The high speaker's voice rolled like thunder. Humans of Earth, we summon you again to account for your actions. Reports indicate that your fleets are moving toward Kraith space in violation of this council's ceasefire order. Every gaze in the chamber turned to the humans. Murmurs filled the air. They're moving ships, are they planning war? They're mad to challenge the Dominion. Or brave enough to finish what others fear to start. Mara waited for silence. Yes, she said at last. Our fleets are moving. A wave of noise broke through the chamber. Some delegates shouted, others stood in disbelief. The high speaker raised a glowing hand. Then you admit defying the council? Reeve's deep voice cut through the uproar. We don't defy the council. We defend our people. The Kraith stole our children. We recovered some. But others are still missing. We will bring them home. The council's members reacted with outrage. 1,000 languages layered into chaos. The high speaker struck the staff against the floor. Earth is forbidden to take unilateral action against another council member world. You risk galactic war. Mara stepped forward. Her eyes were calm, but her tone carried iron. With respect, we did not start this. The Kraith attacked our colonies, stole our young, and then lied before you. We are not declaring war. We are ending one that has already begun. The Kraith ambassador stood suddenly, his claws tapping the desk. You dare justify invasion? You dare to threaten the Dominion? Commander Hale turned to face him, his expression icy. We don't threaten. We promise. The chamber's energy spiked. Holograms glowed brighter and the air itself felt electric. The high speaker's 6 eyes dimmed in thought. You would risk extinction? Reeve answered. We don't fear extinction. We've faced it before, alone, with nothing but fire and hope. What we fear is losing who we are, and we will not let that happen. Not again. Silence followed. Every alien in the room could feel it, the quiet conviction that made humanity dangerous. They weren't the strongest or oldest species, but there was something in their defiance that unsettled even the most ancient races. Mara placed a small black device on the council floor. "This is a live feed from the human fleet stationed near Kraith territory," she said. "If the council wants to witness our so-called aggression, then watch." The chamber's air shimmered, and suddenly, a massive projection filled the space. Dozens of human warships hung in orbit above the Kraith border. Their hulls were silver gray, marked with the blue insignia of Earth. They moved in perfect silence, precise and disciplined. The Kraith ambassador hissed, "You dare bring warships into our sky?" "Not warships," Mara replied softly. "Rescue ships." The feed zoomed closer to one vessel's bridge where an officer reported to Hale's image, "Scanners show life signs in the third sector. Heat signatures match small bioforms, likely the missing children." The chamber erupted again. Delegates argued, shouted, and demanded order. The High Speaker's staff struck the floor once more. "Enough! Earth, you must stand down." Mara's gaze remained steady. "We asked for the Council's help. You delayed, you debated. You held sessions while our children were being used as test subjects. You did nothing. So, we will act." Reeve added quietly, "And if anyone tries to stop us, they can explain to the galaxy why they defended kidnappers." The projection flickered again, showing human strike teams landing on a dark world. The Kraith defenses fired at them, but the humans moved with frightening precision. No wasted shots, no wild destruction. They didn't aim for soldiers. They aimed for the labs. Dr. Voss's voice came through the transmission. "We found them. They're alive." A hush fell over the chamber. The image focused on the recovered children. Weak, trembling, but alive. The sight broke even the hardest hearts in the hall. Mara looked up toward the council seats. "We warned you we wouldn't rest until we brought them home." The High Speaker's glow dimmed. "And if the Kraith retaliate?" "Then we'll finish what they started," Hale said. The Kraith ambassador roared. But the council guards stepped forward, wary. He pointed at the humans. "You have doomed yourselves. The Dominion will not forgive this. We will bring ruin upon your world." Reeve looked directly at him. "Try." The word echoed, sharp as a blade. Later, when the council session ended, the galaxy's media pulsed with images of human fleets surrounding Kraith space. Some species condemned them. Others called them heroes. A few whispered in private that perhaps the humans were right, that sometimes justice required defiance. In the halls outside the chamber, Mara walked beside Hale and Reeve. "They'll send fleets," she said. "The council won't stay neutral for long." Reeve nodded. "Then they'll see what happens when we fight with purpose." Hale's communicator buzzed. "Transmission from Admiral Core," the officer said. "All targets secured. The children are safe." Relief flashed across Mara's face for just a second before the reality settled back in. "How many?" 32, Hale replied. "We started with 78. Silence fell between them. The number said enough. "Prepare the statement," Mara said at last. "Earth will report the truth to the galaxy. No spin, no excuses." Reeve looked toward the stars. "Let them know what happens when someone takes what we love." Far above the council world, the feed from the human fleet continued broadcasting. The image showed Earth's ships holding position, forming a protective line around the liberated children's transport. The Kraith fleets that approached hesitated, watching as the humans didn't advance, didn't attack, didn't boast. They simply waited, quiet, unmoving, patient as stone. In that stillness, the galaxy saw something terrifying. Humanity didn't need to roar to make its point. Their silence was its own warning. Back in the chamber, long after the humans had left, the High Speaker addressed the council. "They defied us," it said softly. "And yet, can anyone here claim they were wrong?" No one answered. Not the reptilian warlords, not the insectoid scholars, not even the oldest races who had ruled for centuries. Because deep down, they all understood. The humans hadn't fought for power or glory. They fought for their children. In the quiet corners of the chamber, whispers spread. They went to war for their young. Who does that anymore? Only humans. By the time the council, lights dimmed. The message had already reached every corner of the galaxy. Earth had crossed a line no one else dared to cross, and in doing so, they changed everything. On the bridge of his ship, Reeve watched the stars shift as the human fleet began to withdraw. The rescued children slept safely in the med bays below. He folded his hands behind his back and said quietly, "They thought we'd break. They thought we'd plead." Mara stood beside him. They thought wrong. And as the fleet turned toward home, the galaxy's most powerful species began to realize that humanity wasn't a reckless newcomer. They were something older, something fierce, something that would burn the stars themselves before letting one of their own be taken again. The chamber of the Galactic Council was vast beyond imagination. Its ceiling shimmered with the light of distant galaxies, a dome so high it could fit a city inside. Thousands of delegates from every corner of the known universe filled the tiered seats, their colors, shapes, and sounds merging into an overwhelming chorus. The scent of ozone and alien pheromones hung thick in the air. At the center, under the unblinking gaze of the galaxy's most powerful beings, stood 3 humans. Ambassador Nolan Voss, dressed in the deep gray of Earth's diplomatic corps, stepped forward. His expression was calm, but his pulse hammered in his throat. Behind him stood Commander Raina Locke and Dr. Elias Trent, silent but sharp-eyed. It was humanity's first appearance before the Galactic Council. The tension was suffocating. From the highest podium, the High Arbiter of the Council spoke, its voice a mixture of tones, more felt than heard. "Representatives of Sol 3, known as Earth, you stand before the Council of 1,000 Worlds. Your world's entry request has been accelerated due to unusual activities detected beyond your system. Do you wish to explain your presence in restricted space?" Nolan's eyes lifted to meet the Arbiter's glow. "Yes," he said evenly. "We came to rescue our people." A ripple of sound spread through the chamber. Dozens of species turned to one another, whispering in disbelief. Few newcomers ever dared to speak so directly to the Arbiter. The Arbiter's voice deepened. "Rescue? Your ships trespassed into the Talrun border, territory belonging to a council member civilization. You claim justification?" Raina's hand twitched slightly, but Nolan's calm tone never faltered. "One of our exploration crews was taken by a Talrun vessel. They did not return our people. We asked for assistance, but no one came, so we went ourselves." An angry hiss came from one of the tiers. The Talrun representative, a creature of crystalline skin and flickering light, stood. "Humans lie. The vessel violated our quarantine perimeter. They entered our sacred sector. We only acted to protect our world." Dr. Trent stepped forward, holding a small device. "Then explain this," he said. He pressed a button and a hologram appeared in the air, grainy footage from a human ship. It showed a Talrun warship disabling an unarmed science vessel and towing it away. The hall erupted in chaos. Voices shouted in hundreds of languages. Some called for sanctions. Others demanded silence. The Arbiter slammed the staff of authority onto the floor, sending a pulse of light through the chamber. The noise died instantly. "Proof or fabrication?" the Arbiter asked. Trent's fingers danced on the control pad. "You can verify the energy signature. Cross-check with your archives. It's real." The hologram shifted, showing a timestamp and recorded energy trail that matched council data. The verification took only seconds. When the light turned green, the Talrun representative's glow dimmed in shame. The humans had been right. The Arbiter regarded Nolan for a long moment. "Even so, you entered restricted space without authorization. You destroyed Talrun ships. That is an act of aggression." Raina stepped forward, her voice low but sharp. "We didn't destroy them. We disabled them. And we did not fire first. We only fired when fired upon." A silence stretched. The humans stood, small and fragile-looking, surrounded by beings that had mastered the stars for eons. And yet there was something in their composure, something unyielding, that made the chamber feel colder. Nolan spoke again, his words slow and deliberate. "We came not to threaten but to understand. The galaxy talks about peace and law, but if those laws protect kidnappers, what peace is that? A murmur passed through the hall. Even some of the elder species shifted uncomfortably. The arbiter's tone softened slightly. You presume to challenge the integrity of this council? I ask it to live by its own words, Nolan said. Every delegate in the room stared. No one had ever spoken to the arbiter like that. The arbiter's 6 eyes dimmed, then brightened again. Your people are bold. We're alive because of it, Reyna said. The arbiter gestured, and a screen appeared, showing the aftermath of the incident. The human fleet was small, barely a dozen ships, yet they had held off a Talrune force 5 times their size. They hadn't fled even when outnumbered. Instead, they had negotiated under fire, recovered their crew, and left without conquering or plundering. The council's members murmured in astonishment. One voice, deep and rumbling, came from a scaled giant representing the Durnath clans. They fought, and then stopped. They could have retaliated. Nolan nodded. We could have. But we didn't, because we believe restraint is the greater strength. The arbiter's staff glowed again. And yet your kind developed weapons capable of piercing Talrune shields. Where did you acquire such technology? Reyna answered. We built it ourselves. That sent another wave of reaction through the chamber. The council knew how long it took most species to reach that level of technology. Centuries, sometimes millennia. Humanity had done it in less than 100 years of spaceflight. The arbiter leaned forward, studying them. You are not as primitive as your world's record suggests. Dr. Trent smiled faintly. We learn fast when we have to. The arbiter was silent for a while. Then slowly the great chamber lights dimmed and a symbol appeared above the floor. The spiral seal of the council. Then let it be known, the arbiter said, that the actions of Earth will be reviewed. The Talrune shall face inquiry for unlawful seizure. Until then, Earth's petition for observer status within the council will be granted. The words sent shockwaves through the audience. Humanity was not being punished. They were being admitted. Nolan exhaled quietly, a fraction of the tension leaving his shoulders. Thank you, Arbiter. We'll do our best to prove worthy of that trust. The Arbiter's tone held a strange note. Trust is earned, but fear is inherited. Many will watch you now. As the session adjourned, the humans left the chamber under 100 different gazes. Some were curious, some cautious, and some filled with calculation. Outside, in the open air of the council spire, Nolan looked out over the alien skyline. Floating platforms, crystal towers, creatures gliding on wings of light. Reyna joined him, her hand resting on the rail. Do you think they'll ever really accept us? She asked. Nolan's eyes followed the faint curve of the horizon where countless ships moved like silver dust. They don't have to. They just need to remember we're here. Trent checked his datapad, reading the incoming transmissions from Earth. Command says the media back home is calling this a victory. Reyna's lips tightened. It's not a victory. It's a warning. Nolan nodded slowly. Exactly. Today we sat at their table. Tomorrow they'll try to see what we're made of. Above them, the stars burned cold and bright. Somewhere out there, thousands of civilizations were already whispering about the humans from the blue world who had defied the Talrune and stood unshaken before the council. And far away, in the council archives, ancient records were being quietly unsealed. The oldest species remembered something they had hoped to forget, a warning written in the ruins of a dead system. Beware the species that learns too quickly. As night fell over the council world, the humans boarded their ship, its engines humming softly. The stars stretched before them like a promise and a threat. Reyna watched them from the viewport. Do you think they'll come after us? Nolan smiled faintly. They will, but not all of them. Some will come looking for allies, some for secrets, and some... He looked back toward the council spire glowing in the distance. Some will come because they've already realized the truth. Trent raised a brow. And what truth is that? That humanity, Nolan said quietly, doesn't play by their rules. We make our own. The ship lifted off, vanishing into the glittering void. And behind them, the Galactic Council, ancient, immense, and untouchable for so long, began to change, one quiet human word at a time. The Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. The hall that once represented order and law now pulsed with outrage and disbelief. The High Arbiter's symbol blazed in the center like a miniature star, illuminating thousands of delegates shouting across the tiers. Their voices formed a storm of sound, echoes of fear, anger, and accusation. At the center of it all, 3 humans stood silent. Ambassador Nolan Voss looked small beneath the towering holographic pillars that surrounded him. Commander Raina Locke's jaw was tight, her stance steady, and Dr. Elias Trent watched the chaos unfold with quiet intensity. Moments ago, the Council had been shown something that none of them could ignore. A live transmission, evidence beyond dispute. A group of alien mercenaries, funded by one of the Council's own factions, had captured human children from a research outpost on the moon of Arvin 9. The footage showed cages. It showed fear. And worst of all, it showed the captors laughing. When the feed ended, Nolan had not spoken for several seconds. The silence that followed was heavier than gravity. Then the High Arbiter had said the words that ignited the storm. "You captured human children? Are you mad?" It wasn't a question. It was the voice of an empire realizing it had made a terrible mistake. The Council's upper tiers burst into outrage. Some demanded investigations. Others shouted that humans had provoked the act. A few called it fabricated evidence, but many, too many, simply looked afraid. Raina's voice cut through the uproar. "You think we'll stay quiet after this?" she said, her tone low but fierce. "You think we'll just wait for your committees to write their reports while our children are in cages?" The Arbiter's eyes shifted toward her, the light within them dim and uncertain. "Commander Locke, we will find the responsible faction." "No," Nolan interrupted, his voice calm but carrying across the chamber. "You will not. We already have." Every representative turned to look at him. The Arbiter's glow flickered. "Explain." Nolan raised his wrist and activated his communicator. A holographic image appeared. Coordinates, data streams, transmissions traced across dozens of light years. "We've tracked the signal. The ships responsible are hiding in neutral space. Your own rules forbid you from acting there." The Arbiter's voice was almost cautious. "And what will you do?" Nolan's eyes were cold. "What we must." The room filled with whispers. "They wouldn't dare. They can't reach that far. They'll start a war." Raina turned to the Arbiter. "You brought us here to follow your laws. You told us this council stands for peace and justice. But when our children are stolen, when your members break your own code, you tell us to wait. We won't wait anymore." The Arbiter's tone grew hard. "You are not authorized to engage in extra-jurisdictional combat. If you act, you will be seen as aggressors." Nolan stared back. "Then let them call it what they want." The lights dimmed. The human delegation turned and began walking out of the chamber. No guard stopped them. No one dared. As the doors closed behind them, the council chamber erupted again, voices clashing like thunder. Some demanded sanctions against Earth. Others called for protection of the humans. The Arbiter struck the staff of authority against the floor, sending a pulse through the air that silenced them all. "Fools," the Arbiter whispered. "You have awakened something you do not understand." Outside, the humans moved quickly through the shining halls of the spire. Their ship, Odyssey, awaited them on the upper platform. Raina kept her voice low as they walked. "Command has already approved the rescue operation," she said. "Fleet is mobilizing." Trent checked his datapad. "We'll be outnumbered 5-1 if we cross the border." Nolan's steps didn't falter. "We've been outnumbered since we entered this galaxy." When they reached the launch platform, the stars stretched endlessly above. Their ship's hull gleamed like liquid metal under the artificial sun. Raina paused, looking back at the skyline of the council world, its spires reaching into the atmosphere like monuments to arrogance. "Do you think they'll try to stop us?" she asked. Nolan's mouth curved slightly. "If they were smart, they wouldn't." Within hours, Earth's small but powerful fleet arrived near the neutral border. 12 ships, small compared to the armadas of the elder races, but each one bristled with new weapons the council didn't understand. Humanity had learned fast, faster than anyone expected. Raina stood on the bridge of Odyssey, her eyes fixed on the enemy formation ahead. "Targets confirmed," she said. Energy readings matched the Talrune mercenaries. And something else, larger signature behind them. "Put it on screen," Nolan said. The view shifted. Behind the mercenary ships, a massive war cruiser emerged from the nebula. The insignia on its hull froze everyone on the bridge. "It's a council enforcement vessel," Trent said in disbelief. "They're backing them." Raina's fists clenched. "So much for their laws." Nolan's voice was steady. Transmit to all ships. Formation Beta 3. Shields up. We move on my signal. The fleet engines roared to life, cutting through the nebula mist. The alien ships reacted instantly, launching salvos of plasma and energy beams. But the human shields held. Their new adaptive armor, something born from Earth's desperate ingenuity, shifted colors as it absorbed each hit. Reyna's voice was sharp. Return fire. The first human salvo struck like lightning. 2 enemy ships exploded before they could even raise countermeasures. The rest scrambled to regroup. The battle was brutal and short. The humans fought with precision, not chaos. Every move was calculated, every strike purposeful. When the last mercenary vessel broke apart, the Council cruiser turned its guns on the human fleet. They're charging main weapons, Trent warned. Nolan looked out the viewport, his eyes cold. Then let's show them what Earth has built. Fire. The Odyssey unleashed a beam of pure light. Compact, focused, unstoppable. It tore through the cruiser's shields like paper, slicing across its hull. The massive ship shuddered, engines dying, its weapons falling silent. The humans didn't finish it off. They didn't have to. The message was clear. Moments later, the cages were found inside one of the disabled ships. The children were alive, terrified but unharmed. When Reyna brought them aboard, even the hardened soldiers turned away, trying not to show their anger. Take us home, Nolan said quietly. When they returned to Council space, the silence was deafening. Every species watched their approach. Every eye followed as Odyssey docked at the spire. The Arbiter stood waiting when they entered the chamber again. The same symbol blazed above them, but now it seemed dimmer, uncertain. You violated Council law, the Arbiter said. You entered neutral space and destroyed registered vessels. Nolan stepped forward. We recovered our children. The Arbiter's tone hardened. You risked war, Reyna met the Arbiter's gaze. War with whom? The ones who hide behind laws they don't follow, or the ones who watched children being taken and did nothing? The Arbiter said nothing. The chamber was silent. The human fleet's transmission had already spread across the stars. Billions had seen what happened. Billions were asking the same question. Finally, the Arbiter lowered the staff. Perhaps, it said slowly, the Council has forgotten what it was meant to protect. Nolan inclined his head. Then remember, because if this galaxy believes humanity will ever bow again, they're mistaken. The Arbiter's glow flickered once, then dimmed. Go, the Council will deliberate. But know this, your kind has changed everything. As the humans turned to leave, hundreds of alien eyes followed them, not with contempt, but with something new. Respect. Outside, the stars seemed brighter than before. Humanity had not just survived the Council. They had shaken its foundations. Reyna looked up from the platform, her voice quiet. What happens now? Nolan watched the horizon where the Council's towers pierced the sky. Now, he said, they start asking themselves what happens if humanity stops asking for permission. And somewhere deep within the spire, a single whisper spread through the corridors of power, passed from one species to another, quiet but unstoppable. They captured human children once. They won't dare again.